Hello and welcome to this session. So before we start working on the project, so there are few things that we need to learn or we need to understand. Now we'll cover three important concepts in this video. So one is artificial intelligence. So what is artificial intelligence or AI? Then the other is LLM and then the other is API. Okay, some of you or most of you may already know this, but if you are a beginner, please understand that this is very important for you to understand to get a holistic view of what exactly this AI and the hype and everything is. Okay. So first, what is an artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence, this is the basic definition. So this is a field of computer science building up systems that can perform tasks which require human intelligence. So this is the most important thing, right? So human intelligence such as reasoning, learning, perception, decision making. All right. So see, if I have to define my own definition of artificial intelligence, so I would say artificial intelligence is something that mimics human brains. Okay. So that mimics human brain. So this is the most important thing I would say, right? Okay, sorry for my handwriting, but AI is basically something which makes human being. So if you understand this, then a lot of things you can basically understand by just asking questions, right? So okay, so an artificial intelligence, right? What it can learn from data, right? It can basically give you generate images for you, it can generate tests for you and everything, right? So under it's a broader AI is basically broader, under which we have some ML, right, which is machine learning. We have deep learning, we have natural processing language, NLP, right, and computer vision. So this is a broader way. So now let's say so what happens here is basically how this entire thing works is, so you have an input. So AI will take an input. So this is an input. So you basically provide an input. Now that input can be anything. So it can be an image, it can be a text or anything. And then this input will go to a model. Okay, so remember when we did a setups, we called OpenAI models and everything. So this input will go to this model and the model will process that input and it will give you a output. Okay, so this will be an output. Now this output basically we called as prediction. So basically it predicts. So what happens is, if you, let's say if you ask this ChatGPT or anything, if you basically say that, hey, India is, and then what it will basically, if I just say India is, basically you will say, hey, India is a country, right? So similarly it will basically predict. And how it is predicting? Based on the training, a lot of data is being trained on it. So let's take an example. Let's say if you provide the picture of cat and ask it to identify the animal, the AI would predict it, hey, this is a cat. If you do it, if you send it dog, it will present it as dog. Now, how AI is basically able to identify? So basically, during the training season, training sessions, this AI models will be provided with thousands or millions of cat pictures and say like, hey, this is a picture of cat, this is a picture of cat, or this is a picture of dog, right? So you are basically training the AI model saying, hey, this is how a cat looks, this is how a dog looks, this is a picture of a cat, this is a picture of dog. So similarly, how you train a human being also, right? So you basically tell them, hey, look, this is how cat, this is how the dog looks and everything. And then what we do is, any other, if you give me another cat or dog, I'll be able to identify and say, hey, this is a cat or dog based on the features that I have learned previously, right? So similarly, AI will learn all those features. So whatever training is done, based on that, it will give you the output. So if you have trained your AI saying that, if you send the picture of a dog, and if you have trained the AI saying that, hey, this is a cat, which is wrong, but that is possible, right? If you have trained the wrong data, then if you send the picture of a dog, it will predict it as a cat, right? Why? Because you have basically trained it saying that, hey, this is a picture of dog and you have to output it as cat. All right, so this is a very important thing. This is where the concept of bias comes, right? If you have wrong data, or not perfect data, it might basically give you wrong output. So not exactly biased, but basically wrong data. So it is important that when you train it, you have the right data. So we don't have to worry about all this because we're not creating a model from scratch. But this is an interview question. So you might ask, people might ask this interview question. That's why I'm just letting you know. Okay. Anyways, back to our topic. So we're talking about AI, right? So AI is a broader umbrella. It basically covers a lot of this. So you have an input, you provide it, input will go and talk to the model, and it will basically provide the output, basically predict the output. Okay. So next we want to talk about LLM. So what is LLM? LLM or large language model is a deep learning model. So this comes under the broader umbrella under the AI, right? So AI is a broader umbrella under this lot of things. This is part of the deep learning model. Okay, so it is trained on large set of data the to model the probable distribution of it. So basically, what it says is like this is basically trained on text. It's a human language. So large amount of text data is been trained, and based on it, it will basically give you the output, right? So it could be like text, could be like, hey, you're coding, right? That could be a text, right? So because the code that you write is basically text, right? So a lot of code has been trained on, and based on this, it will give the output. So it basically predicts. So whatever is there, it basically predicts the data, and it is very good at prediction. Okay. So what we will do, what this does is like under the hood, the same concept. So you have an input that you will send to the LLM model. So we will call this LLM model. So we have already called the LLM models in our previous session, right? So we call the OpenAI DeepSeek model. So we send the input. So now this input is basically called as prompt, right? So whatever you send, right, that is basically prompt. So this prompt it will take, and based on that prompt, it will give you the output. All right. So this is how it works. This is a basic concept of LLM. Okay. Now modern, so there are many things within this, like the tokenizations and everything, which we will learn later, but this is how it works. So what are the capabilities of LLM? So it can generate text, right? So we saw, right, we asked a simple question of what is an LLM. In one sentence, it is able to generate the text. It can generate code. You can ask an LLM to generate the code for you, and it will generate the code for you, right? You can ask some questions, it will give you the answers. You can summarize something. A lot of things are there, right? So our thing, our course will basically look at the LLM. So we look at how we can use LLM models to write code or write generate code or review code. A lot of exciting things is there. Okay, so this is the basics. Now next is basically API. Okay, so API is basically an interface that allows software system to interact with structure, request, and response. Okay, so in simple terms, what happens is, so we are at client, right? So we are writing our code in a local desktop. Now we want to connect to LLM models. So how do you connect LLM models? So they will expose something called as an API. Now you need to hit this API. So we need to send a request to this API. Now this request, once you send to the API will send a response. So you will send a response, they will send a response, and now you have to parse this response. So once you parse this response, we'll get it. See, when we send a request to the OpenAI model, so we got the response. So if you observe in the code, the last we said a complete dot response. So we are taking that response and we are displaying the response. So this is what how it happens. So now why API is like, anybody can just talk to that API. It's very easy, right? You just host it somewhere, and we can hit the your API URL, get the output, parse it whichever way you like. So these are the three important concepts, and I think most of you might already know this. So now what we will do in our next sessions is like we will start working on projects. So we will hit the LLM models, and we'll ask certain questions, or we'll create certain projects, or we'll create code. So a lot of exciting stuff is there. There are other important concepts that we need to learn, like the tokenization, as I mentioned, and other things, but all those things we will learn in the upcoming videos. All right, so I'm all excited for our very first project. So I'll see you in my next class.